win an opportunity to receive a $50 gift card. And on the survey, we don't ask for your name because we want the responses to be anonymous, but they're coming down. Good evening, everyone. Awesome. We're going to get started in just a few moments. You should have had the opportunity to take a survey. If not, you can take a survey and enter in the opportunity to win a $50 gift card on tonight. And so the survey is anonymous, so we're not asking for your information. But if you put the last 4 digits of your telephone number, we're going to announce the winner tomorrow on Facebook Live. So if you want to take the survey, yet remain anonymous, just put the last 4 digits of your telephone number, and we'll announce it tomorrow, and you can identify yourself that way. Hopefully, 2 people don't have the same last 4 digits. But we'll get started in just a few moments. Good evening, everyone. I am Eddie Johnson. I think pretty much everyone here knows me, but I work for Southwestern Michigan Urban League, and I would just like to share just a snippet on the inspiration for tonight's conversation. And I suppose where I'll start is I've been working for the Urban League for almost 7 years, and really post the opportunity to go to college and gain an education, to have an opportunity to build such a career, it's my second opportunity in the professional world. And so over the last 7 years, I have noticed some specific distinctions between our President and CEO, Kyra. She's not going to like me talking about her tonight, but I can't talk about this tonight without talking about her. I've noticed some distinguishing characteristics about her leadership and the impact that it had on my ability to produce as a member of the organization and the organization fulfilling its mission. And more specifically, last year, internally, we had a great learning opportunity, I'll put it that way. And I watched how Kyra literally handled the situation. And I said to myself, this is not normal. I've never heard of this. Now, while this is my second opportunity at a career job, I've had jobs since I was 14 years old. I started working when I was 14. And I've never had a boss, a leader, a supervisor, or a manager that led in the way that Kyra led. All right. And because of such, I believe I've never been able to produce for an organization or a company in that way ever in my life. Yes? And so I said to myself, there is something to be said about Kyra's leadership. And I said, I think maybe, just maybe, I just had this inkling that maybe it's not just Kyra, maybe it's women leaders that have a distinction in their characteristics that makes the workplace conducive for a different type of product from their, I'm gonna call them servants, their workers, right? And so Kyra and I continued to dialogue over the course of several months and landed on this idea that we would spend the next year or two actually studying women leadership. And so we launched this work in the fall of 2021. And I started doing some research, and we started doing some virtual focus groups with some leaders locally. And what I found both in the literature as well as locally, one, there's not a lot of work being done on women's leadership. And two, there's even less work being done on the distinguishing factors of African American women in leadership. And I noticed there was a connection between my work with When Women Lead and my doctoral studies on cultural competent pedagogies and curriculums. And that is, there was a distinguishing factor between not only women and men, but African American women and their counterparts. I won't go into that tonight. But I would like to say, before we start tonight's conversation, that one, this is the beginning of something long-term. We want to continue to study this, we want to continue to amplify this, and we want to continue to learn from women in general, and more specifically from African American women. As such, tonight I would like to invite you all to purchase our book that we wrote from my studies over the last 8 months, just with some, just little bitty, and it may be big to some, but from what I have discerned, they're just not even scratching the edge, the surface on what we have to learn about women in leadership, as well as more specifically African American women in leadership. So I invite you all to purchase the book tonight, to learn, and to grow with us. So, now to the meat of the matter. Tonight, I also want to acknowledge one specific nugget that hit me like a ton of bricks. I don't know if you guys, ever been in church and you feel the Spirit of the Holy Ghost, whatever you call it, and it kind of hits you right there. Anybody ever had that experience? Yes, no, maybe so. It's like the preacher's preaching, and all of a sudden it's like, pow! It's like, on the day of Pentecost, not to get all preachy, they said their hearts were pricked, right? It's like something changed, and they said, what must I do to be saved? Because what you're saying, Peter, is something different. And so in one of our last virtual focus groups, someone who is here tonight, and I feel is another one of those gems that we're just not paying attention to for whatever reason, right? So here I am, I'm sitting in a 2-hour focus meeting, 90 minutes, and I'm like, writing notes, like, whoa, really? And I'm taking all these nuggets down, and then at the end, Aisha Walters, I asked the participants to give one golden nugget, and that they would share with leaders, with specifically women leaders. And she said, don't be afraid to hatch while flying. And as I was sitting there, it was like, wow, and it just kept coming along, and for 2 days, I couldn't let it go. But the more I think about it, it is really summing up what African American women have been doing in their leadership for the last 200 or 300 years. They've been hatching while flying. They've been riding a bike while making the bike. They've been making it happen. So tonight I really want to acknowledge Mrs. Walters. Can we just give her a hand? I don't want to take credit for anybody else's work, specifically an African American woman's work in this season. Amen? Amen. In church, okay. All right, so at this time, I would like to invite our first set of participants. Tonight we're going to have 2 conversations with 2 groups of African American women. The first group is a set of African American executives locally here in Battle Creek. And the second group is a group of African American women who have served as city commissioners here in Battle Creek, Michigan. That's all I'm going to give you because the conversation is going to be rich, and I don't want to take up any more time. So our first set, we have the president of Kellogg Community College, Dr. Bennings. We have our superintendent of Battle Creek Public Schools, Ms. Kim Carter. We have our local director of our communities in school, Mrs. Aisha Walters. We have our president and CEO of Southwestern Michigan Urban League, Mrs. Kyra Wallace. And I thought I had seen you over here, but you're over here. We have the pastor of this great church, Pastor Monique French. Finally, last but not least, we have what I call the co-pastor of the Sanctuary Praise Church of God in Christ, a leader in her own right, my godmother, who will be hosting the conversation, evangelist, preacher, Hazel Amon.
Okay, this is about my level right here. Can you hear me? Glad to have you all here on tonight. Proud of each of you and the specific role that you play in this community. And we salute you for that up front. I have a few questions I'd like to ask, and I ask so that we can reach every one of you. We can try and limit your remarks to 2 to 3 minutes. And then you'll get the chance to ask some questions. So my first question is, what is it that African American women get that others don't get about leadership? Who would like to go first? If no one volunteers, I'm going to volunteer.
So good evening, everyone. So what is it that African American women get that perhaps others don't? When I thought about that question, what immediately came to mind is that the way you show up matters, right? And it doesn't make you fake or phony. It just means that you have learned how to be strategic in your ways of being. And then the second thing that just struck me is the way you treat those who you are leading. That matters as well. Because what I found from my experience is that you tend to get something out of them that money can't even buy. Yes. That's loyalty.
Yes.
So in following Kyra, when I think about this question, not to speak in a vacuum, but to speak about my leadership as an African American woman, I think the thing that I get is the collaborative nature of leadership. And I think sometimes as Black women, which can be a blessing and a curse, and it goes back to that patchwork line, but also, the old proverb is lift while climbing, is about like stewarding future leadership. I'm always about how can I treat staff or my coworkers to basically work me out of the job. And I think that is part of the leadership that I think that I have seen and witnessed, but also experienced as a Black woman in leadership, is cultivating leadership, cultivating people, not just about task specific, but about what do you want to be, what do you want to do, and how can I support you on that. And I think that that's something that is different because it takes out that competitive nature. It's about that collaboration.
Thank you, Kim. Well, I will say a couple things. One of the things that come to mind is almost similar to what Kyra was saying about showing up. And so for me as a Black woman, I never could just show up for something. And I learned through my mom, my grandma, friends, and family that when you have to work harder, it has become a part of me in terms of a spirit of excellence. And I've always had to work harder at something, and it's become so naturally ingrained in me
in pushing forward in excellence, that there's no doubt that the work that I put forward is authentic, it's valuable, and I'm worth the work and the reward of it. So the excellence piece is one. The second piece I would say that as Black women that I can relate to and I really embrace is the fact that because so many people judge you first by what they see rather than knowing who you are, and because whether it's Adrian or Monique or Kim or anybody like that, as a Black woman, I'm already judged nationally, historically, stereotypically, implicit biases. I'm already judged in that capacity. But what is important to me is learning through that is that because I go into a place to add value to others because I already know that people have already taken value from me just based on what they see. And so the excellence and the adding value to others is very critical, and I think it's something that as Black women we get because for so long we've not had that value added to us just because of the way we look and who we are.
Just to piggyback on what's already been said, I think it's really important. Relationships are very important. Building up people, understanding, and making sure that I hear them because I also want to be heard. But a lot of times I know that, as Adrian has stated, when we show up, a lot of times we're seen but not seen. Or people have made assumptions about us because of appearance. So to me, relationships are very important in allowing people to find their voice, their purpose, because I believe that every individual that I come in contact with has value and has purpose. And so allowing them to actually be heard is really important to me. Allowing them to know that I hear them, I see them, and I see the value in them. And encouraging them to find their purpose and to use their voice. So that's really important to me. So I would say that being in this position, knowing who I am first and empowering people to discover who they are.
I think we all have the same sentiment, but for me, the first thing that came to mind was just that you have to know thyself.
Yeah.
That you have to know who you are before you can lead others, and then you have to be more willing to follow, as opposed to always trying to take the lead, because you learn from people. You need to be the leader that they need, not the leader that you want to be.
My next question is, when carrying the world, what are the dangers of neglecting yourself?
For that one, I would just say, forgetting to find balance, right? And the danger is in giving so much to the people you're leading, to the position you're in, and not actually finding the balance that's needed in order for you to be mentally, physically, and spiritually healthy.
I'll say for me, it was in self-care. There was a time in my career early on where I allowed what people said and how they treated me to really shape who I was, and that wasn't who I was. And I'll give a quick example. Early in my career, there was an individual, and they would just pour negativity into me. And it became so ingrained in me where at one point, personally, I had become depressive because of all these words they were speaking into my life. Finally, it came to me to say, first of all, who am I? I know who I am. I'm Adrian L. Bennings, child of the Most High, Black woman from a lineage of successors and ancestors who came before me. And it took years for me to get there, but now as I elevate in my career, I've learned that to be able to show up, to be present, to motivate, to lead, to inspire, I have to step away and refresh myself and reinvigorate myself, because my life and my worth is just as important as the next. But I can't edify and equip others if I'm not refreshed, if I'm not ready. So that for me is being very intentional about caring for yourself and putting yourself first just as much as you put others above yourself.
I'll talk about the microphone. I'm a pastor, so I know how to. because a lot of times you get swallowed up in being busy and doing everything that somebody else wants you to do, and you don't have time to do what you need to do for yourself. So I had to find that balance because being delivered from trying to appease people or being the nice one, you know, they can always come to me and ask me to do anything that they wanted me to do because I was trying to be the nice one. So I had to like push back and just really be intentional about taking care of me because I can't empower other people if I'm not empowered to say, you know, I can't or enough is enough. So just learning that balance and finding that quiet space so that I can hear, you know, the Lord as He's telling me what the next right thing for me to do is.
So when I think about self-care, I begin to think about, like, what does that actually mean, right? And it's a time to refresh, but it's also a time to release, you know, release. And so when I said, if we don't engage in that self-care, what can happen? And I'm like, too much could be stored up in us, and if we don't release it, and then we get to a point to where we explode, and then that explosion then will cause people to look at you and perceive you in a way that's not truly accurate. However, understanding that, then it's hard to recover from it, you know, from the way people see you. So for me, that self-care is extremely important. My time of refreshing, my time to release for me.
So I was gonna say, part of that renewal is saying no, but it was said, so I won't repeat. But I think the other part that has become sacred is routines. And so how I start my day, I do not start my day checking my email. I don't need to know a notification on Facebook, Instagram, any of that. And I think that I have set aside, at least for the past 2 years, sacred time for devotions, to really figure out what I need for the day, followed by a cup of coffee, so that I have these moments for myself. Because, you know, the kids are going to continue to want, you know, you're going to have to continue to give to your job, you're going to have to give to your spouse, to all the extracurricular activities. And I know that from basically 7 to probably sometimes 8:30, I am booked with activities between work, like routines going up and down 94, dropping off kids to events, whether it's dance, whether it's soccer. So I take that space at 6:15 every morning to renew for myself and to commune with my Maker and to read my devotions and to level set. And I think that if we don't take time for a space for us, then we break. Then we're dealing with anxiety. Then we're dealing with depression. Then we are then named, sometimes even unworthy, that angry Black woman. And so how do I get what I need for myself without asking someone to give me what I need?
I'm loving this. Yeah. I really am. I have one last question for you ladies, and that is, what is your superpower? And what is the significance of your superpower?
I'll go ahead and start. I think when I looked at this question, I was like, oh, what is it that I possess? But I think the thing that I hold dear to me is discernment.
Yes.
Being able to see things as it may happen, when it is happening, and to be able to respond or react. But also to like be that kind of counsel through this discernment. And I think that sometimes discernment allows you to take a step back and not react. And be in spaces where people need you when they think that they may not need you. And I remember I have a close friend who used to tell me, you know, she's like, man, your spirit of discernment is on like 100. Like you always can sense things, and you call me or you check in, whether it's about my business, my kids, my spouse, when I didn't think I needed it. And I think tapping into that has really been a protective factor for me. And it also has been translated into me being my strength professionally as a strategic thinker, being able to see big picture, being able to like see the different pieces of puzzles. And so I think that, you know, in thinking about my superpower, discernment is mine.
So, superpower. That was an interesting one for me to think about, right? Because I just started coming up with different attributes, if you would, or characteristics of myself. But then I was like, no, a superpower. And then I related it specifically to leadership. And so the one I landed on is my ability to code switch, right? Even though I wish it wasn't necessarily necessary, it is. And I've grown accustomed to learning how to do so effectively. And so what that has allowed for me is to be able to navigate through any situation with anyone and anybody without causing a lot of harm. That ability to code switch. And just really quickly, for those who will say, well, what is code switching? It's being able to adapt in any environment in a way that you show up, which we've been talking about how you show up, right? And so I get to decide what part of me show up with who, how, and when, how much, and all of those things, and be okay with it. So that's why I stated my superpower as it relates to leadership is code switching.
I really love listening to the conversation because it's really interesting to have that conversation, that question in advance, and how we've all really processed through it. But for me, when I read that question, what came to mind is my superpower is having an unwavering faith that yields unrelenting hope, right? And so for me, what I mean by that is that if I ever believed that I was in control, I probably wouldn't make it, right? And so every day I have to reset with understanding that I'm not in control of this, but that I will always walk in my purpose and ensure that I'm aligned to His will. So I just have to know that that is what is my superpower, of staying in that unwavering faith, because when you are an African American female leader, you are going to be hit with so many biases, microaggressions, challenges, and if you don't have something that you can anchor yourself in, it can break you, right? And so we've been talking about that pressure of, you can either allow pressure to build a diamond or to burst a pipe, and I'm going to build that diamond. So.
I had to really think about this one too. All of those are so great, and I could probably use those myself. But one that sticks out to me, especially in this season in my life, has been, as a leader, the ability to extend grace. And grace is when you can be among those who don't support you, but you give them grace because you know that there is a purpose for their life and a purpose for why they're in your life. Grace is when, one thing that's been really successful for me in leading my teams in every environment has been understanding that to help others grow, you help them through periods of failure, periods of when things don't work, and I pull the grace card of not being punitive and not being so critical, but let me help you. How can I support you? And I have a heart to empower, and so the grace is very foundational to leaders. Grace has been very, refining for me, because there have been a lot of refining moments. The more advanced I go, because when you get to the top, and whatever the top is for you, you'll have more people watching, you'll have more people with opinions, you'll have more people with criticisms, you'll have more people with all these things that could tear you down. But I always extend the grace. And the one thing that comes to mind is we've all seen, I think her name is Ketanji Brown, and she's got this face where she's taking it all, and you're like, that's the grace face.
has already been said, but I can't change saying it again. I echo what Kim stated, mine is my faith. That has kept me grounded, knowing that I have purpose, knowing that this is not in my hands, but coming from a place of gratitude, because one of the practices that I've been doing is at night, I just kind of debrief my day, and I write down the 5 things that I am so grateful for that I encountered throughout the day. So it allows me to see things differently. It allows me to see people differently. It allows me to interact with people differently, and always come from a place of hope.
It seems like we got a lot of preachers and ministers up here.
I was thinking the same thing, that you might be making sure you're taking names on this one. I am. Okay, we've reached that point where I've asked these ladies their questions, and now it's open for at least 2 questions that anyone out there can ask. Anyone want to go first on asking a question? Yes, sir.
Hey, I appreciate the panel tonight. Great panel tonight. I have a question as a supporter of an African American female women. That's my wife. As women that are in positions of leadership that have superiors that are not necessarily ideal, how do you deal with the criticism, those second guessing, and sometimes ultimately not being able to do the job that you were hired to do? How do you deal with that?
I'll answer. So one of the things that I learned being an African American woman, we are always expected to exceed people's expectations. We come from a place to where we always have to exceed people's expectation. But I think, as has already been stated, extending that grace, not holding it against them, because actually the place that they're coming from propels you to the next level that God has for you.
And to follow up, I would just say that when you said extending others' grace, it's also extending ourselves.
Oh, yes.
Because in those spaces, we have to recognize that it's oftentimes not even about us.
Right.
And so I have this little saying, it's NAY, not about you, because it's not. It's normally something that they have going on in their lives. And so we have to learn to give ourselves grace, and that it's okay to fail forward and just get up and try again.
I think it's amazing that you asked that question as a spouse, because as I reflect of how I get through when I'm confronted with these challenges, I have learned to lean on my spouse as a confidant to like the sense of renewal of when, can I process this out loud to you before I show up any kind of way to them. And I think that having those sacred spaces really allows you to like bounce back and continue to show up as who you are, how you know who you are. And I think having, whether it's a spouse or that confidant, that best friend, and having a process person in your life actually helps you keep finding that renewal and that balance to keep one foot in front of the other the next day.
Just making sure.
Okay, so the question I have is, what advice would you give to someone like me, someone that's emerging into these roles, 20 years old, the world is their oyster? That's my
The only person that can put limits on you is you. That's what I would say.
Thanks. So I was gonna say not to limit yourself, And truly lean on and lean into those who support you and who you are and will want to see you genuinely succeed, and you will be fine. You will be fine.
I would say that, the journey as an African American woman is never easy. But I've learned, and I'm continually learning, that every trial, every position, every moment of adversity is a moment of refinement. And I always say, what can I take from this? What can I learn from this? How can I grow from this? And that has been, for me, the greatest point of success is when the world's against you, when you've got challenges, when you're leading in challenging times, the refining moment is not just coming through it, but it's growing through it, becoming that diamond, that beyond the 4th carat. I like 10 carats and stuff like that. So becoming that diamond under pressure. And diamonds are formed through a crushing type of system in the hard, rocky places. And so to be refined and come out wearing your crown like, I'm still here. And it's a beautiful moment. And you'll have those challenging times. They will not be easy, but to know who you are and to know that it's refining you to be better than your yesterday self will be your best thing. So,
And I do just want to add that having a mentor, allowing yourself to have that extra support, and allowing yourself to always be in a position to be teachable. I think that'll take you far, in addition to what has already been said.
Thank you.
I was about to say, let's give these beautiful African American queens a big hand for being so transparent. Thank you for your transparency. Thank you for giving us spaces to grow into. Thank you so much.
Awesome. Let's give them another round of applause. Some people have come in just a few moments ago, want to get the opportunity to get a survey. It's your opportunity to win $50 tonight. So you hadn't had the opportunity to take a survey. Miss Tracy, wave your hand, or Miss Robin, you can get your survey and engage and further this work. At this time, let's continue the conversation. Let's go a little deeper as we receive the historic 5. That's what I'm calling it. The historic 5. Yes, that's hot off the press. Let's receive our 5 African American women who have served on the City Commission in the history of our city. Let's receive them at this time. Let's receive Mayor Barbara Perry. City Commissioner Linda Ray, City Commissioner Carla Wills, City Commissioner Luca Herring, and City Commissioner Denasia Morris. Let's give them a hand.
Finest commissioners ever. Like, aren't they beautiful? She must be an amazing person.
I'm especially ecstatic about this part of the conversation because what we have here is a multi-generational voice from the community. Can we just give a hand? 3 generations.
First, I want to start off by saying thank you to each of you for your service, and then I commend you for the fact that you have been this successful. But I want to ask you, what is your definition of success?
Well, thank you, everyone. I feel like saying, giving out of the guy. Who he truly is.
thank God for this moment. These women, I am so honored to be on the stage with them and so honored to be here with all of you. Thank you so much for inviting me and us to be a part of this historic moment. We are amazed and excited to have this conversation. You all probably know the answer to this question from me. Here it comes. The answer to this question for me, and it's been said, I think, in other spaces, is succession. And I tried very hard, as I was running for mayor, to place other African American women in a position to continue the work. So if I couldn't be there, if they were there in position to do the work. And they did the work themselves. I'm so proud of them. But that's what it really means for me, is constantly making sure that our voices are in the room at the table, making important decisions for our community so that we are represented. Representation matters. So for me, success looks like making sure I'm always looking out, identifying individuals who might have a heart to serve and getting them what they need to do that.
Everyone, and thank you for inviting me. It's a pleasure, and it really is great being here with these young women, they have really got me going. I work, I'm still working, I still do daycare, but they just call me and they say, come on, Miss Maud, and they've just taken me under the wing. I really appreciate that, because of the respect that they've given me, and I'm going to consider it supporter and mentor, whatever they want me to be. But success to me is when you decided that you want to do something in the community or in your job or in your career, is to attain that goal with satisfaction. Sometimes we can attain a goal, but that doesn't mean we're satisfied with the outcome. So satisfaction is very, very, very important to do that. So you set goals, but you also want to look forward. Is this the benefit, or is this the thing that I'm looking for?
Good evening, everyone, and thank you for inviting me as well. I am Commissioner Carla Reynolds, City Commissioner at Large, and success is, for me, is something that you define for yourself. It is a sense of giving back to something of a bigger picture, making a difference, setting goals, achieving, etc. There can be many levels of success: personal, family, careers, financial, education, volunteerism, political, etc. And also, as my counterpart here has said, always looking out for the younger folks here, because they are going to be the ones that's going to follow us. So always looking out and mentoring and checking with them, seeing what they need. That is very important.
Commissioner of Ward 3, and success to me is a personal goal. Waking up every day realizing that I still have things to learn, that I'm not perfect, that there is a generation of young women behind me that are watching me use my voice. You know, I'm old enough to have a 20-year-old daughter, so she's the cute one over here in the black space. Just knowing that she's watching the way I carry myself, she's watching the steps that I make, the way I use my voice, the way I utilize my power, and even this pretty commissioner to my right here, just watching them, you know, that's success to me. I love watching them use their voice. I love watching them find their power and find what motivates them. And that's success to me.
Hi, how everybody doing? Good. All right. Had to make sure y'all can hear me. Yeah. So, I approached this question in a way that kind of made sense to me. Our society is driven by capitalism, but money is not what is successful to me. Having a lot of money, I don't feel that makes you successful. What success looks like to me is when this is normal. When it's normal for young people and Black women to be in leadership roles. Right now, that's not normal. Like, that's what we're having for men because it's not something that we see usually. For me, success is going to be when this is the norm. I would love to see young people and Black women in these positions and using their voice to represent their people. That is what success will look like.
Thank you. It's kind of like 3 questions in one. The first part A, what did it feel like being the only African American or only African American woman on the commission? The next part is, or in the current context, how does it feel being among other African American women on the commission?
I'll start that way. I'll lead the way for that. It is powerful. Okay? I'm never by myself. This commission has been empowering and beautiful, and it's a sisterhood and a journey. And I appreciate Ms. Lynn for helping bring me into this. But I know that when I face things as a commissioner, I am not in this alone. And that's one thing that is one of my most proud moments about being a Black woman. I know that I never struggle alone because I can always go to my sisters or to my mother or to my daughter. We are in it together. We work through it together. We support one another. We solve problems together. And that's the most beautiful part of it. So I have not been alone in this journey. And I thank you for leading the way.
So I still have 3 generations in my family ahead of me. They're still living. I have my great-grandma, my grandma, and my mom. And it is a blessing. And I go to them for advice. I go to them for just, they shape me into the person that I am. And I have picked up so many aunties along this journey. A few y'all out there, a few y'all up here. And it's just been, like Commissioner said, very powerful to have other people that look like me, other people that know my experiences and know what I've been through, to be able to go to them for advice and when I need help. Sometimes it can be overwhelming being so much younger than everyone else in this field that I'm in, but knowing that I can go to them, I can go to college, I can go to school, I can go to this one, knowing that I can do that lets me know that I'm going to be okay in this, and I can look to the experiences that they have had to help me make the decisions that I need to make, and I really appreciate it.
Okay, so the first question,
What did it feel like being the only African American or the only African American woman on the commission?
okay, I was proud to represent. However, I was alone, but I showed up. I was at every meeting, every committee meeting, I voted. I also demanded to be on certain committees. When I was first elected to the county board, they wanted to put me on committees that weren't important. I said no, put me on the finance committee. I will know about the finance. And then also put me on the evaluation committee for the county administrator. Those are positions that mean something. You learn so much from those. As far as being on the commission with other African American women, wow. Let me just tell you, as you can see, we represent 3 different generations. And it is amazing. amazing going through this journey with these women. I really appreciate you. We agree, and sometimes we don't agree, but that's okay. That's the beauty of it. We learn from each other, we share ideas, we support one another, we respect each other, and we love each other. With that being said, I'd just like to share a quote from our First Lady, Michelle Obama. When they go low, we go high. Thank you. And we care about our community.
So when I think about being the only, and it was the only for 11 years, it was a long time. I think about my faith and my tribe, my community. They helped motivate me to keep going. I can't tell you how many times I was disappointed about something I didn't, we just didn't have the votes to get something done. And I was disappointed. There was thoughts that, you could have done more. And I'm like, actually, no, only one vote. I need more backup here. But I can certainly speak my mind. I can let people know exactly how the folks that I represent wanted this to go, so everyone knows. And I can, be that vote in support of my community. So my faith really helped me be the only. Through all that opposition, it helped me stay strong and keep the faith. Right, and keep going. My community helped me keep going. And something that, when you're the only, really makes a difference is your allies as well. And so I see some of those allies sitting in this audience right now. And no matter the times that I was thinking, this is it, I'm not going to run again. And people also ask me all the time, why do you put yourself through that? It's like, because if I wasn't there, who would speak for the people? Right. Who would? And that's what kept me going. I had to be there. And so having those allies made all the difference in the world when I was the only, but I had more than just myself. I had God, I had my community, and I had those allies, urging me on, even though it was difficult.
Well, to answer your questions, how do you feel like being the only African American woman in government? And my first experience was for the Calhoun County government as a city, where they named the commissioner, but then it was as a supervisor. And that was my first experience in government. And I got there because I worked for an attorney that decided that I needed to become a county commissioner so that I could represent the city of Battlefield, who had no representation at that time. So I needed to do so, and accidentally I won. So that's how I felt. And I didn't know anything about county government, and I had to learn fast. I had to know who the people were, who I was representing, not just the city of Battlefield, but the whole Calhoun County. And it really was a good learning experience. I enjoyed it. I was on the board for 2 years, and that's when I went into a business for daycare. That's when I learned about things that were needed in not only Calhoun County, but the city of Battlefield. So as I ended that venture, I had a friend that was on the city commissioner, and his name was Attorney John Hooker. And John Hopper served on the city commission, and so did Mr. Reverend Willow. And John decided that I'm not running anymore, and we need somebody to carry the torch. And he offered the torch to me. So, and he just takes it so easy, but he was very encouraging and very supportive and told me how to get started and how to run. So you really do need a person that believes in you, that will encourage you, and then provide for you the means and the people to how to get it done. So I did run for city commissioner, and it was a task. At that time, the Urban League was very active, still is, but it was very active back in the 1980s. And the Urban League was very strong in encouraging people how important it was to get out and vote. Because if you did not vote, you cannot get the things that you need in your community. You cannot grow. We need jobs. We need to have our economic development to become larger than what it was, to make sure that people were employed. So all of those things were important. And this is why you need to serve in city government or county government. And the vote was very important. So that was part of that when we started to do that. So when I got elected to the city commissioner, being the only female black, everybody thought that was exciting and good. But I felt like I was just serving my community, representing the city of Battle Creek, representing our neighborhood, because we also found out that there were a lot of things going on in Battle Creek. There were a lot of community development, block grant monies. There were a lot of things, services that we feel that everybody didn't have the benefit of receiving. So if they had good representation, then we could make sure that they had the information and then we could do something about it and the city of Battle Creek could be more equitable. So that was the reason why I joined. And as I served for 6 years, and as we grew, I grew in the city commission. I served with all men, and of course, during that time, Battle Creek was losing a lot of jobs, and the Lakeview district was considered a bedroom community, but they had the jobs and professionally the kind of money that Battle Creek needed for us to grow and not to die. So we decided to merge with the Battle Creek community, the city of Battle Creek, with the Lakeview Township, it was called at that time. And doing that merger, then we grew, and then that's when we had all of the commissioners from Lakeview District at Battle Creek. And I was sitting on there with Pastor Bullock, and Pastor Bullock was there, and I want you to know, because of Pastor Bullock, he was a strong individual that fought very hard for the north side of town to make sure they got all of the good services that they deserved and needed. And I will never forget how he fought so hard to get people involved in the city commissioner to serve on boards. He told them how important it was. Serve on the board so that you know what's going on. You know where the money is going. You know what your needs are. You know how to help your school district. He just did all of that relentlessly. He was up and down the road supporting his community. He did for everybody, but especially the black community on the north side of Battle Creek. And I want you to know today, when they decided that we're going to have another election, that is 1985, when we ran again, at that time, they elected Mayor before, because we had a city manager that ran as vice mayor. Why can't you be the mayor? Because they come back in the men with each other who they were going to vote for. So the pastor said, well, you might as well be the mayor. And when he stood up and nominated me, their jaw dropped. Literally. And I said, okay, Lord, not knowing. I just said, okay, Lord. And they finally decided that they would select me to be the mayor. And then the next day was history. I want you to know the women in Battle Creek were elated. I got so many congratulations, so much support. I got all kinds of invitations for the community, but my goal was I'm going to serve everyone in the community, literally. But I did want them to know, because I'm serving everyone, I want to be fair to make sure that the Black community in our city needed better jobs, better housing, and better schools, a lot of things that they weren't privy to. And the only way they can get that information is to elect them to the city boards that control those issues. And that's what we did. And then more people got involved, we got invited. We started to beautify the city of Battle Creek with the West End initiative. We started to increase through the Urban League with small businesses. The businesses started to grow. We were just involved. So I was busy. I learned fast. And I went all over the world. They sent me to Africa. They sent me to Japan. We were representing. I became an ambassador. That's about what happens. You're an ambassador for Battle Creek. But you have to be an ambassador for Battle Creek at your home. It starts here. So you want good for your community. Look at the kind of services that people need. And you make decisions based on what's happening in your communities. If other people and young people need jobs, or the young adults are without jobs, you have the resources and the information to allow people to know this is where you go, this is what we can do. So that's the benefits and the advantage of being on the city government. So I think that after I served, now we have another generation, and when Debbie came along, she was a road runner. She really opened up the pathway for you young people because she was everywhere. She served everybody, and that's what I did too. Continuously busy. I knew everybody, and I served everybody. I served from the Boy Scouts, Girl Scouts, running. There was no place that they asked me to come as a mayor that I did not go to represent the city of Battle Creek. And sometimes they made choices and they would go certain places. I represented everybody and I went everywhere. I am very thankful and glad that I did that because a lot of young people, a lot of young kids were watching me. They didn't know that they had a person of color or a Black African-American woman as mayor, and I would go to the schools. Each of them, they were so excited that I was the mayor of the city. So you see, there's a lot of encouragement there for other young people or young women to do the same thing. It was good. It was hard. I'm going to be very honest. It was not easy. Because you have to deal with all the personality, and people had agendas. And because of that agenda, you really have to, as they say, know who you are, who you represent, and to keep the faith. Because God will protect you, and I believe that. Because Pastor Willard believed in me. He was there for me until he passed away. When he was a strong individual that believed you believe in people, you have to invest in them. And that's what we did. So I thank you for the opportunity. I know it's a long story. A lot of, I did do a lot. I represented Battle Creek. I always represented Battle Creek to different counties, different cities, different countries, and we were always trying to build up the economic development. And when they did the industrial park area, needing to bring more businesses to the city of Battle Creek, I was on that board, I was a part of that board, and we were always looking for jobs, but I never forgot that. Do not forget our black people that they had businesses, and those that needed to be trained, to get educated so they could get the good jobs that they were planning for the industrial park. So it's a lot of work, and you're busy, and you're just gonna have to have the support of the community. And the one thing our black community will have to remember: get out and vote. Vote. Representation that you need. And I want you to know, because you have them there to represent you, you can always call them and say, I need something. This is happening in my community, because they don't know everything that's going on. So please utilize them by letting them know what's going on in your community, because then they can take it to the city government and ask for improvements. They can just do a lot of things that's going to be good for the community. Battle Creek is a good community. It sticks together, and if someone needs something, trust me, Battle Creek comes together, everybody. You don't care who it is, north side, east side, south side of town, we all come together because we believe in the city of Battle Creek. Thank you.
I'm going to start to pass the mic on down. I think Ma Perry, unless she'd like to add something else, I think she answered that last question. And the question is, how does or did, in her case, your leadership enhance the commission?
So what comes to mind for me, as everybody knows, I guess I'm kind of famous for, is keeping you informed, right? I saw her mouth it out there. So that came about actually in having conversations with constituents who were saying, you know, I got this street light on my street that needs to be repaired, and I was like, oh, well, all you have to do is go on the website and you'll be able to draw attention to that and let them know that it's out so that it can be repaired. And they were like, well, I didn't know that. You know, and so I just kept running into people for basic information that they could get for themselves, but they just didn't know where to go and how to obtain it. And so I thought, let's go ahead and introduce community members to these various city services that their tax dollars pay for, so that they know how to access it. And as a commissioner, I'm learning about all these different departments and all their functions, and I wanted to make sure everybody else knew what they were doing and how they could be empowered for themselves. And so that turned into email blast, a town hall, television show, because you guys say it, I'm the Oprah of Battle Creek, right? Yeah, I know. It's kind of, I'm blessed that way. But, and so I just kept trying to make sure that my community knew what I knew so that they could feel empowered and utilize the services that were available. So that was something that I was very proud of. Right now, my sorority, I'm a member of Delta Sigma Theta Sorority Incorporated, along with Commissioner Reynolds here, and I see some of my sorority sisters out there. And, you know, when I was serving, and even now for the sorority, getting on board, you heard Auntie Mara talk about it, we need more representation. And on those important boards, like Planning Commission and Battle Creek Unlimited, and we need our voice at those tables too, because economic development is so important in our community for those good jobs, housing, etc. We all work in these different spaces. So it was my honor to try and make that process easier for you to apply for the boards, committees, and commissions of the City Commission. So that was a real proud moment, and we're continuing that work today. So if you want to serve, reach out to one of your city commissioners. There's plenty of opportunity. They've streamlined it even more than when I was there to make it easier for you to, engage in that way. And again, representation on all those subcommittees is just as important because they all have a role, a piece of the puzzle that makes us strong and great. And then lastly, I didn't mention it before, he had to step out, but another person who has just been my heart is my husband. Samuel Gray, man. As I was running for mayor, as many of you know, he was diagnosed with non-Hodgkin's lymphoma that definitely changed my focus for a little while, but God knows where I was supposed to be, what I was supposed to be doing. But through it all, it was always wonderful to see him out there sitting in the commission chambers supporting me. And I remember maybe at one of the neighborhood planning council meetings I had mentioned, it's kind of lonely up here, so I want to see some faces out there from my neighborhood, from my community, the folks that I represent. And I noticed that Mr. Sweet would come often, just because I made that plea, he would come to the commission meetings. So I'm going to ask all of you, right now as they serve, please find a time, even if it's only once every 3 months, just go to the commission meeting. Even if you don't say anything, go to the commission meeting, let them see you out there supporting them and give them feedback, because it makes all the difference. That's how we make our decisions. We do a lot of reading, we do a lot of research, we do a lot of asking questions of our constituents, and it's always good to see people engaging and giving you that feedback so that you can do your job better. And my husband is that sounding board. I think I heard that earlier from one of the panelists. That is so true today as well. And so I appreciate all of you. Thank you so much for this time.
Well, thank you. And Lynn, you took all of my words. The committees and the boards. Yes. It is so very important for you to be a voice. And please reach out to us. That's what we're here for. We're here for you. We serve you. One of the things I do want to talk about before I pass the mic to my fellow commissioner is that we had an amazing decision with the ARPA funds. I think we made an amazing efforts to our city. We provided 29 proposals. And with that, I think that we have done just awesome for these different organizations. It wasn't easy, but it was something that we needed to do, and I think that we did the best that we could do. So thank you so much for your support. And it's time to pass it on.
Answers. I forgot the question.
How does or did your leadership enhance the commission?
So I think this year the commission is very different. It looks different. It's estrogen-led, I would say, and I love it. From the beginning, it has been bold and courageous, and we have taken some steps that I have not seen before in city leadership. And that is a phenomenal feeling. It is it's a lot. Big, bold is a lot. You know, we catch flack from all sides. We ask a lot of questions, and we're the newbies, so we ask a lot of questions, but our questions come from our community. I know especially Commissioner Reynolds was talking about the ARPA funding that went on. That was a lot of work. I spent 42 hours, I wrote them down, 42 hours going through proposals and making sure that we were choosing what was best for this community. We wanted to make sure that the people in the neighborhoods felt that money. And I honestly think we made a great decision with the funds and the funds that were allocated and the projects that were chosen, because I truly feel that each one of you will feel the work that's being done in the community with those choices. And it's just, it's a lot, it's bold. And that was our term that we began the beginning of this term with, was let's be bold. Let's not do the same old thing. Let's be bold and let's step out there on faith and see what we can stir up in this city of Battle Creek. And if you come in and meet it, it's interesting. It is interesting and entertaining. And we'd love to hear what you have to say. This commission is approachable. Like, my phone rings all day long, and I still answer it. You know, if you have any concerns, let us know. That phone rings at 2 o'clock in the morning. Commissioner Aaron, let me tell you about my neighbor. My neighbor is out here blasting this music. Can you come around the corner? I'm not coming around the corner. But we can talk about it tomorrow. Right. You know, and we always make sure that we bring forth what our community is speaking about and what matters to them. So I'm just proud to be a part of this team. And I'm proud to serve with my loves here. And I'm proud of this small lady. The way she looks at us is encouraging. She looks at us with love and with respect, and that speaks volumes. So yes, thank you.
How do I follow that one? I think that my leadership enhances the commission because I'm not afraid to go places where commissioners or leaders traditionally don't go. I think it's important to go to the places where I'm not expected to be in, to get the perspective of the people that are in those spaces, and then bring those perspectives to the commission when we're making our decisions. So I think that being not afraid to go to that call where somebody's saying, my neighbor is too loud, and I'm going over there to, have interactions with the neighbors so that the neighbor can know me and know what I stand for and how I represent this community. I think being a representative of not just people who look like me, but people who live in our community as a whole. Everyone is not the same. And when I say I represent my community, I don't just mean that I represent young Black women. I represent all of the world too. And that's important that people do. And before I finish, make sure that we go vote. It's really important to go out and vote. I'm not sure it's probably common knowledge now, but I won by 2 votes. So if that don't tell you that getting out to vote is important, because every vote matters.
Ladies, I want to say, and I believe I can represent everyone who's in this room, we are very proud of you. We are very proud. I have a saying that I use often with people when I'm on Facebook, and I say, I love you and I believe in you. And that's what we want to say to you tonight. We believe in you. I love you and I believe in you. So I thank you for, again, being, just as the others were, being very transparent. You told your story, and I'm glad we had an opportunity to hear your story. And we appreciate you. And at this time, I'm going to open it up and see if there are any questions in the audience. Anyone who would like to ask a question? Don't everybody jump at once.
Don't be shy, we don't bite.
Do I see any hands?
I did a great job.
Yeah.
Thank you for having us.
And this time, here he comes. There he is.
Let's give them another hand as they're leaving the stage. On behalf of our president and CEO, Kyra Wallace, I would like to thank you all for being here tonight. Can you just give yourselves a hand? As I said at the beginning, I would like to share that this work is ongoing. We want to continue to learn about and learn from the leadership of women here in our local community, and we want to be advocates for the leadership of women in our local community, in our region, in our state, and abroad and across nations. So ask that you would just continue to follow us, follow our email. There are events that are coming up, and especially for the women that are in the room tonight, encourage other women in the community to take our surveys. And I know we don't like taking surveys, and we've been trying our best to figure out how we can shorten them. But there's only one way, well, there's two ways. We can get conversations, have different conversations with you all, but that can be kind of tough. But the most easiest way to get the information to learn from the masses is for you all to answer those surveys. So just encourage you all to encourage others to take those surveys so that we can continue to learn and keep attention to our Facebook page and our email, because there are more events that are coming, especially over the summer months when we can get outside and social distance and breathe some fresh air and learn together. So again, thank you all so much for coming. I would like to invite you all to purchase our book tonight. It's for $15. It has in it much of the lessons that we've been learning, and I would love for you all to support us. The profits from the purchase of the book are going to go to continue this work. Thank you so much for being here.
How much is the book?
The books are $15.
I don't get one tonight, but
You can get one. You can come to the Urban League and purchase some, or you can purchase it also on Amazon. Thank you so much for being here. We have refreshments in the back. If you want to get refreshments on your way out, we'll be in touch. Have a great evening. Stay healthy, stay safe.